Good morning. Good morning to all out there that are watching this morning. Today's session is financial literacy for moms and kids. I am Patrice Register, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. And I was past interim executive director for the State of Women, and I've been with the organization for quite some time. And I'm excited to be here and be a part of this panel. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a mother of three sons. I have also three grandchildren, two grandsons and one granddaughter. I'm so excited to have a girl. Yay! Because at one point in my household, everything was, even a dog was a boy. And I was like, I'm outmanned here. But it's exciting to be able to share with other moms the experiences that you have when you're training up your kids. And so I'm super excited to be a part of this particular panel because as a single mom, when I was married, we got divorced when the kids were small. And then going into that single mom role, it was a bit of a challenge to try to keep everything together. I'm also a caregiver for my 93-year-old mother. And she's an amazing lady, and I feel so blessed to be able to care for her during this COVID crisis. She got COVID and beat it twice. So I'm just so blessed to still have her on the planet and learning from all the lessons that she's taught me around, keeping things together, because she too became divorced and was a single mom for a while, and it was challenging. So we'll start out the session just going around the table here and letting everyone introduce themselves. Maybe we start with Janice.
Hey everyone, my name is Janice Scholl, and I'm the host of the Money, Career, and Motherhood podcast. It's my goal and my passion to help women navigate the transition of their money and career through the stages of motherhood. I find that we under-prepare mothers for the financial events that often come along with motherhood, and what are really the risks, which aren't necessarily bad things. Risk is just volatility. Our ability to predict the future decreases when we become mothers. So that is my focus for the podcast and the work that I do outside of the podcast to support mothers.
Awesome. How about you, Yolanda?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Yolanda. I am a wealth advisor in South Africa. I'm based here in South Africa. So I am a director of a financial services company here. I'm also very passionate about empowering women and kids in general when it comes to their finances and building financial literacy, eventually leading to financial wellness. I am an author of a book called Financial Literacy for Kids 101. It's actually some stuff that I put together for my kids that I share with other parents with the hope of empowering their kids when it comes to money and finances as well. I'm the host of the podcast, the Wealth Nation podcast, again, trying to help women specifically in South Africa, try to get them to understand our financial systems here in terms of taxes and what opportunities are available for them. Thank you. Patrice, you're on mute.
Erlyn, how about you?
Okay.
I read my lips.
Yeah, I was trying to. I thought you had something to say there, but I was going to jump in. My name is Erlyn Kakanad. I am from Des Moines, Iowa. West Des Moines, Iowa. I am a mom of two boys, toddlers. And so I'm in the early stages of teaching them about financial literacy. And they give me different and new perspectives of just the worldview every single day. My background is I have about 12 plus years in finance, banking, and insurance industry. And I moved to the United States a decade ago. I'm a very new citizen in the United States. And my story really started with coming to this new country with just $500 in my pocket and growing wealth from there and stability, going through all the instability and insecurity of life and what it throws at you when you're in a new country with absolutely no family support. So it taught me great lessons, and I am here to share my insights as a mom, a wife, as an entrepreneur. And I'm also a founder of Kids Care Share, which is a technology company and a marketing platform that helps find childcare for moms to continue on to their careers. That's about me, and happy to be here.
Welcome, Erlyn. Stephanie? And I think if everyone would go ahead and put themselves on mute as each one of us are talking, that might reduce the feedback a little.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Mears. I am the vice president of an investment firm here in California. Southern California is as beautiful as it looks, you guys, but it also has its downfalls, right? I'm also a CEO of a women's empowerment group, a president of a nonprofit that helps women and children on the streets. I also have published 4 books in the last year, including one that's won a world record for a couple of different reasons. I also have a podcast called Empower Hour with Stephanie Mears, a radio show, and a plethora of other things. But my most important thing that I do is I am a mom, which is the hardest thing that I do too. And I have a son and a daughter. They're amazing. And I also have a little 6-month-old puppy, which is also like having an infant. So I'm loving life. Everything's good. But just, I'm excited to hear from everybody here today for sure.
Awesome. So I really don't, I was hoping that Kelly would have shared with us some of the things that she had planned to talk to us about. So we'll just start to have a little conversation. And if she's able to hop on, we'll be excited to have her here. So I think maybe one of the questions I would have, or statements I should say, is that how do we really communicate financial literacy to our kids? Because, in especially during this pandemic time, and it's just so many challenges that's going on, even though, I'm speaking here in the United States, but, we've had like all of the assistance, government assistance and such, and then it kind of takes you into a whole different area of how you should be talking about finance. So maybe if we can share our thoughts on that, and how do we communicate that financial piece to our kids at this point. Anyone want to jump on? And
I'll start if you guys don't mind.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm very, very adamant about teaching my kids personally, as well as helping people with in general, is just a simple budget. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I know a lot of adults who don't know how to do a regular budget, right? But when we teach our kids at a younger age, what a budget is, what it looks like, what it means exactly, how much income versus how much outgo, it not only helps the kid understand how to eventually get there themselves, because it's not something that you teach them once and they'll remember forever, especially if they're really young. But it is very helpful to have them at least start at a younger age. I also have my children watch basically like these really great YouTube channels that have it specific to what the stock market is, what a stock is, those type of things at younger ages. My daughter started at 5 watching these things, and she finds it very interesting that what I do for a living and how it works exactly. And I don't know any other 5-year-olds who says, "Hey, how's the stock market today?" Right? So it's kind of fun. It's a fun thing that it's almost like a game that you can start at a younger age to kind of start teaching them and showing them how to grow investment accounts, but also how to budget. And, oh, wow, that teddy bear cost me $50. That's like a whole hour of work for you, right, Dad? Or whatever, right? So it just kind of gives them also a little bit more appreciation for what they have too. So that has been something that I've noticed really to help at least my children and the people that I've worked with for kids and also adults on kind of a great start.
I agree. I think budgeting is definitely a first step because, a lot of times the kids, I remember my son one time, he wanted something and I said, well, we have to save up for that. And he says, but you can use your credit card. I was like, no, he saw me swiping this card and he's thinking, oh, that money just magically appears on there. And so, then having to go in and explain how all that works, he was like, it was like it just kind of blew him away. I got to save for this, and I got to do this, and I got to manage this. And so kids, I think you're right, Stephanie, starting them out with simple things, realizing the value of something and then working towards that. I agree. Anyone else have any thoughts?
I just wanted to add, I think you definitely have to start with kids young. It's most effective because you can talk about small concepts and you can build up. And a lot of parents and mothers in particular, because we're the ones talking to our kids about the purchases and things like that often in our families, we don't want to talk to them about the big stuff that maybe we don't feel comfortable with ourselves. And so we don't talk to our kids about money. But when you start having that dialogue with kids when they're young in age appropriate ways, you can build your confidence as you go through the process as well. So by the time you're talking to a 15-year-old, you're having a different conversation and you have more confidence yourself than when you were talking to that 3-year-old. And Stephanie, I totally agree with you. The conversations that we're having at the dinner table with our kids and the conversation that we had on the ride to work about what's happening from an economic perspective with the supply and demand of gas right now, in the US, we're having these conversations because they already have those fundamentals built. But for those who are saying, well, I don't have a budget set up, I don't have this process in place, it's okay. Start with where you are and you can learn with your child. And that actually shows them that growth opportunity that they have at any stage of their life, which is so important to implement with your kids as well.
I think for me, one of the lessons, especially during last year's hard lockdown, I mean, we were all stuck at home, right? We couldn't go out. We couldn't do anything. And with my kids, I have 3 young kids, and it's hard to talk to them about money. And I find that getting them involved in doing rather than just me speaking, they learn faster by having a hands-on approach. So what I did was I set up a little home economy where I got their favorite snacks and we put a price on it, $1 for a chocolate bar or, that kind of thing. So you have an idea what I've done. And I made them work for it. If you want half an hour screen time, you gotta earn the money. And we had like a fake Monopoly money, and that's how they used to get paid. And while we were during hard lockdown, and that was the currency that we used. So if they wanted more screen time, they had to do more work for it. They had to clean up, do the vacuuming, put some dishes away, do a load of laundry or something like that. And especially with the younger kids, getting them involved in those kind of basic transactions, I feel that would stick to them a lot more than, as opposed to older kids who can understand when you do speak. But younger kids, getting them hands-on involved, I think that provides them with a lot more learning opportunities.
So I have been, like I was talking in my introduction, that I have had experience in banking and financial. And one of the hard part of my job over the years has been working with families who go underwater. So bankruptcy, loss mitigation, foreclosure, short sale, all these concepts where somebody has to lose their house because of no payments. So the lessons that I took away from my job and what I try to bring in my home and in my own financial decisions in buying a toy or buying a sports equipment for my kids, a bicycle, why a $60 bicycle is okay or $50 bicycle is okay, than that $120 or $150 that's at Ori's, So making that distinction. There are 2 things that I always look at when I provide the conversation and the literacy in my family around money is, one is conversation, and I think all of you talked about it. It's great. It's powerful. And the second is in that conversation, driving commitment. I can buy you a fancy phone or a fancy ball or a soccer ball, but what is your commitment to that sport? And if I can delay the decision of buying something for you and get your focus around why you like it, do you like it? How commitment can you be to it? Why should you like it? Why would you like it? And just kind of understanding what's going on in your head and eliminating the fact that I looked at it, I saw it while I was sitting on the cart when you were walking around Target. I see the good colors and I want it. I want to walk them away from that instant gratification moment and convert that into commitment of why you need it and what will it change for you when you get it. And all of the good things about point system and currency, I do a little bit of that with my 3-year-old, not a whole lot. It's just hard to keep them in line. But the two things that I walk away with, and even with school age kids here in Des Moines Community Schools, is I talk to them about commitment and conversation when it comes to financial literacy for kids.
That's so important, and that's a really great tip. I know now my children are much older than you guys' kids. They're in their 20s and 30s now. But I remember when they were younger, and you would think they would be teaching some of these things in school, but we don't get that. At least back then, they were not getting those things. And I did find one public school that I actually moved to the district area so that my kids can go to. Is they were teaching that. They were teaching them how to balance a checkbook. And I thought, that's great, starting in the school at at an 8th grade level, where they now really starting to put the concepts around money and what it means. Because, even though I was teaching some things, and, but their friends would come with all these lavish things and they're wondering, well, why can't we have this? So we have to kind of teach them the value of things, and then it's not always the good to have what other people have. What's, like you said earlier, what's valuable for me? How is it going to make my life different? If I have this thing. They were all avid skateboarders, and I used to go through tennis shoes and skateboards like crazy. And then one day my son wanted this very expensive shoe, skate shoe. And I was like, no, my budget is this. And he couldn't understand why. And I said, listen, let's go and add up how many pairs of shoes you've gone through, and we'll write down the cost of each one of them. Now, we know your shoes last. It's the same shoes, basically the same material, Now, that shoe will probably last you 2 weeks before you get a hole in the toe of the shoe, right? Versus me paying $20 for a pair of shoes that's going to last the same amount of time. So I had to kind of get him to understand, oh, okay, so the shoe does basically the same thing. It just costs more because of the name, And that's where I think we have to kind of teach our kids about the value of an item versus just buying something because of the name of it, if that makes sense. So I think those are some lessons that we need to have the conversation, because we're so driven, all the commercials and everything making you feel like you got to have the most lavish item, but it still does the same thing as the less expensive one, where your value lies. You got to figure out, where does your value lie? So
add something to that, if that's okay. Something that I think is really also very fundamental for children, in my opinion, is taking the kids with me. So I take them whenever I do homeless outreaches, or of course in safe environments, of course. And I'll take them so they can see, wow, these people really don't have anything, and how can we be more helpful? Because then they value what they have more, for one, and then they can see the value that you're giving to them when you're not only giving them items, but also spending time with them. Because when you're homeless, your parent may not be able to be with you all the time. As a child, I was homeless, and so I know my mom was kind of off and doing her own thing all the time, and so quality time with that kid means more than anything that you can buy at all. But when the kid can see the value of, wow, I have a home to live in. I can take a shower. I can wear clothes. I have all the food you could possibly eat in this house. It's amazing how that appreciation for those things that they have, even the basic things, is so much higher because they now see the difference. And so that's why I like doing the budget. And that's what we talked about kind of starting off, was showing them this is how you won't become homeless, or you won't have issues, is if you start now figuring out how to do this budget thing, how to do work on a financial plan. Obviously, you don't do a financial plan with a 5-year-old, right? Because not many 5-year-olds will understand what that means, but at least kind of giving them an idea of what it all means, a little bit at least. And then also the other thing that is really important to me, and that I've really instilled in my kids, or not installed, but just told them about a lot, is credit. I don't know about you guys, but when you were 18, I wasn't told, hey, don't go buy stuff on credit cards and then just, go rack up the debt, right? I don't know if anybody else did that, but I know I sure did. And I regretted it for a couple of years afterward, having to fix it. So I've really tried to tell my kids, we're going to be thinking of this as logically as possible, and how we can make sure that you're going to be successful in the long run.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Stephanie. Talking about credit, I've kind of did the same thing. No, I didn't learn the lessons till later in life about credit, and because I always saw my grandparents raised me, so they pretty much bought everything cash. They didn't even do credit, or if they did credit, it was with a local store, and it was more like on a barter system. Maybe I'm kind of dating myself, but but it was like, she always, whatever, I don't ever remember being without, because I always saw her pay cash for stuff, and she would save up her money and she tuck it in her little area there. And it was like, whenever you needed something, she would go, here you go, And so that just taught me to really more so rely on cash purchases versus utilizing a credit. So when I got a credit card, I just kind of went, nuts, so to speak. I mean, I knew I had to pay it back, but you know what I mean? It's just like you didn't really put any kind of framework around how to use it, and building that credit background and such. So I think that's something absolutely that we should be talking with our kids about, how credit works. And because we live on a credit system, I mean, and sometimes I feel like it's set up to make us fail. How is if you don't have the knowledge and no one's really teaching you, they're just pushing it to you. Like when I got in college, to me, why does a college kid need a credit card? I don't know, but they, the credit companies are targeting them. And I think someone even actually filed a suit, to try to stop the credit card companies going after these college kids, because it's really ruining their lives, So if you guys have any comments on.
Yeah, actually, strangely enough, you're talking about credit. I have been an expat for a long time. So I've lived out of my country for a long time. And when I did come back in my 30s, I had no line of credit because I had no credit cards in the country, no store cards, nothing. And when I went to apply for home finance, they rejected me. And to think that I have money in the bank, for over a decade, I had dollars coming into a South African account, which was, a decent amount. And I refused to get credit. And nobody ever told me when I was younger. I mean, I could have maybe gotten a local credit card and to build up a credit rating, but I had zero credit rating. And strangely enough, the system is designed to work against us. And I think no matter which country we're in, the banking system is just working against us. And we need to empower ourselves, empower our families, empower our kids on how to work the system to our advantage. Now that I've been through this experience myself, I got to teach the kids, we can't be racking up credit. We got to budget ourselves correctly, use the credit wisely, and to get a specific line of credit so we can finance opportunities for ourselves in the future.
I think one interesting concept, one time I was teaching at the communities at the Thank you for that. I saw all the nods. I was like, what's going on? One other concept I wanted to throw in there. One time I was teaching just during fall. I always go around schools teaching middle school group of, and it's just volunteering time. But I teach them financial literacy, and I teach them, one of the things I teach them is Uncle Sam, that you earn money and then a part of your income goes to, the tax department, right? IRS. And as I was teaching the class, the teacher talked to us, and Halloween was just around the corner, and everywhere you went, there was all Halloween shenanigans going on in town. So one of the examples the teacher gave, and I love that example, and I use it in every forum, it resonated with me. And I did this last Halloween. Well, we didn't have much of Halloween except for a few people in my community. But when kids went out, they got their candies, my 3-year-old, and they came back. I took all their Twix because, well, let me tell you, when I was pregnant, I ate all Twix. So my kids should know that by now. It's my favorite. And so I took all their Twix and I showed them that when you go out and earn your living, a part of that, and sometimes your favorite part of it, goes to IRS. And I was that Uncle Sam. So even small things like this is easy to even introduce the concepts of not everything you go out and you get is all yours. There's a part of it that goes out to something else. And I also didn't try to share with them that like just teaching Medicaid and other stuff. I came home and my mom was here from India. She lived with us and she lives with us in the summer. And I said, a part of it will go to grandma. And here's why. So just teaching that, certain things, because grandma couldn't go out in Halloween and get candies for herself. So here we are going to give 2 candies to grandma from Uncle Sam. So that's kind of how I used that Halloween, an example that the teacher from middle school gave me. And I used it last year for the first time. And it really helped them understand and ask questions and become curious as to, so why does Uncle Sam need my candies? Like, does Uncle Sam eat the candies? But just kind of introducing concepts like that in a playful manner can help build financial literacy amongst children at 3 years old.
I like, Erlyn, what you're saying, because it's really, you're talking about how to talk about it in an age appropriate way and bring in these concepts that seem really complex and often are to us as adults. But when you make it playful, when you make it kind of fun, hey, you stole for us, it's a fry tax. Hey, you stole my French fries. Like, hey, wait a minute. What happens there? Those are ways that you can have that dialogue and not be super technical and be within your comfort range of how you experience that financial event as well. And Yolanda and Stephanie, I wanted to just go back to the concept of debt and credit. And, credit cards are called credit cards, but I really try to have kids separate debt and credit. Because you need credit. We need to have a credit score. We need to have a history in order to demonstrate our financial worthiness to purchase a home, to do things like this. But debt is baggage often. And so understanding that the piece that comes from using that credit, the credit is the asset. It's that you are able to secure the financing that you want in the future. That is a tool. Debt is an opportunity cost. When you have debt and you incur the costs of debt, that means that now you are not able to use that money in the future for something else. That means that you are spending more for an item today than what you would be spending if you were able to pay cash. So really understanding that there's a value to using credit as a tool, but that when you carry debt, it impacts your ongoing lifestyle because it takes away that opportunity cost. And, Patrice, what you were talking about earlier with the shoes and things like that, you can't just budget with money. You have to budget with your values. There are more things for us to buy than there will ever be money that we have, at least for, 99.9% of us. And so we need to be able to say, yes, I value this X dollars, because we often have this philosophy of yes, no. Yes, I want this. Yes, I need this. Well, do you need it $50? Do you still need it $100? We need to quantify our value and say, these are the things that are important to me. These are the things that I want to invest in, and show that to our kids, teach our kids how to say, yes, shoes for soccer, because that's really important to me, are more important, or it's skateboarding, whatever that is. Or as a family, we value travel, for instance. And so we're going to spend a little bit money on vacations so that we can have bonding time, but we're not going to spend money on these other activities. It's really, the earlier kids learn the opportunity cost of both debt and purchasing, the better off they'll be at making a conscious decision, instead of just letting the flashy, shiny objects grab their attention and have them spend.
That because it's so important to do know those opportunity costs. I volunteer for an organization also called Junior Achievement. Are you guys familiar with that organization? So it teaches kids about money, work, life balance, and such. And it's a great organization because, you know, a lot of the volunteers are coming from the banking industry and different places of that, so in financial industries. And they have like a whole curriculum and I think it's good to get your kids involved in those types of things too. Even listening to some podcasts around, you know, money and stuff, so that it's not always coming necessarily from the parents, because, you know, I know my kids, when I'm telling them something sometimes, and I often pray, Lord, let them hear my voice when they're out in the world, you know. But, you know, sometimes something that I've said and they hear it from someone else, and it's like, I just said that to you, you know. So I've learned now to kind of get them involved in other organizations, so that the message that I'm preaching is sort of like it's quantifying the message, and then also they know that I'm not just making this up, you know, this is how it is. And so I think too, just getting them involved in other organizations or listening to things around money, and just having that important conversation, that community. I mean, you learn as you do better as you know better. So what do you, some of the organizations that you ladies that you're currently a part of, what type of programs would you recommend for parents to connect their children with? You do a podcast around that, so I'm sure you've kind of met some organizations that you would maybe kind of recommend, or even, you know, listening to what you have to say on your guest on your show and such. So could you share some of those with us?
Yeah. And first of all, I think the junior achievement programs, the different types of programs, are excellent. They have career path exposure. They have, you know, kind of the process of being a business owner that they can go through. There are so many different experiences through junior achievement that are excellent. There are also starting to be different programs in high schools, for instance, that are not necessarily just about personal finance and financial literacy, but they still support understanding the concept of money. So for instance, our school district has an entrepreneurship innovation center. So that was a place where I coached a group of high school students to create a business, to create their plan, to go out and look at how they're going to get this thing off and running. And it involves money, and it is entrepreneurship, but I think that it teaches people to be kind of controlling their own destiny with their money, even if they don't choose entrepreneurship. So I think exposing your kids to entrepreneurship and business concepts are a really great way if you don't have access to a financial literacy program directly through your school. Then also, what you can do within your own household are things like there's a podcast and there's a program called The Art of Allowance. And I think it's an exceptional way to talk to your kids, and they have different age appropriate ways to start to implement that budgeting process, start to implement, the jar saving systems for kids who are as young as 3 and go up through high school and into the college years. So finding the right program can look and feel like directly financial literacy, but it doesn't have to. There are other ways that your kids might be interested in a topic that you can expose them to different ideas. Organizations like Girls Who Code, exposing our girls and our children to different career paths that they may not be exposed to. Business owners often come from business owners. There's a reason why we do that. We've been exposed to that career path. And so the more that we expose our kids to the different opportunities, money is not as simple as just managing a budget. There's money is so big. There's the making money piece. There's negotiating on money. There's understanding the flow of money, making that money and managing it appropriately, and then saving for your future. All of that goes into it. So any way that you're able to introduce those concepts to your kids. Another area are a lot of the banks have programs for young people to start to explore, what does savings mean? How do I open up a savings account? What happens when I save money? And how can that grow? To kind of talk about that compounding opportunity that they have when they start early. All of these different areas are going to touch a different facet of money and are reachable wherever you live. There's generally going to be some program that's either within an organization or online, even if they're not learning it in their high school or their middle school.
I really enjoy the whole idea of investment clubs, or like financial literacy clubs. I've noticed a lot of them, particularly in my area, that are either in junior high or high school, not really in elementary, but junior high and high school is pretty predominant. And where a lot of financial savvy people will go in and have conversations with these kids. There's also really a lot of great internships at financial firms to kind of help people, these kids that are in high school usually, and then in college, really understand what it looks like to do investments, and the basic budgeting obviously kind of comes first, but those little things really make a big difference. There's also a lot of really great opportunities online too, like Janice had talked about, where there's podcasts, there's just so many amazing opportunities that were not available to a lot of us when we were younger, right? Because the internet didn't really exist when I was a kid. I hate to say that, but it's true. And so now I can go onto my phone for 2 seconds and be like, wow, the mint.org looks amazing, because it's literally for financial literacy for children. Or, savvyladies.org. I loved that name because, ladies and savvy, like extra money. I love it. But it's amazing how you can have at your fingertips almost anything you want to learn is there and available to you. So I can honestly tell you, I love the investment clubs. I love the opportunities to have these children learn things in ways that is understandable to them and that is age appropriate. Like Janice has said several times, and it's very true. Age appropriate is absolutely necessary, because if you're talking way above their heads, like you have Bloomberg in the background, and for a 5-year-old, they're going to be like, Mom, this is so boring. Like, why are we listening to this? Right? But if you have it on there for a 15-year-old who knows, hey, I know what Apple is. Oh, I know what this means. Or, just at least tidbits, they'll pick up on it at least a little bit more. So I found that very, very fun to kind of mention, especially the investment clubs and also financial literacy clubs that are in the areas.
Suggestion, because clubs, means that you're not doing it by yourself. You're doing it as a group, and kids nowadays, they like group activities and such. And so you start to share and you learn from each other, and also a little bit of competition, as well. So I think that's a great suggestion, is do the investment clubs.
I just want to add one thing, was around for younger kids, like if you're thinking about 3 to 5, I think that's kind of where I'm currently functioning. So I look at books and reading books and just reading time with them. And there are several books that I've picked up from the daycare and from the daycare teachers in the book club website. I don't remember what the website is, but they use that for getting a lot of books, and it's all picture. I think it's Bernstein author and Bern and Jan, and they have a lot of small books, less than $5 for $4.50 to be precise and accurate. And those are really small books, all pictures, and it talks about putting money in a piggy bank, or it just teaches concepts about money and how just read the book every day to your kid during reading time or before bedtime or during, throughout the day. I think that is another, if you're looking for something that is more, they can get their hands on, get pictures in there. Completely opposite of Bloomberg, Stephanie. So I completely agree, right? That can be boring and dry. So that's another one good resource for people I wanted to offer. And those books are available even in the libraries. If you ask the librarian, they are a best resource to give you where you can find the book on the bookshelf, or where they can just kind of put it in the drive-through for you to come at a later point and pick it up. So those are some really good free resources, not too expensive resources to also help younger kiddos and introduce those concepts in their just regular routine that you have established.
I think since we're living in the age of technology, I mean, it's like the Candy Crush generation that's out there. The ability to gamify as much as we can, I think will add value to kids. And in South Africa, I know there's an app where kids can log on, and they'll be shown a little video about some financial concept, and then they go through a quiz and they collect these stars or coins or some way of rewarding them, and then they swap these coins for something. So it's a whole system, where they're being rewarded to go and watch a video, and hopefully they're taking it in as well and trying to grasp the concept that's being shared on the video. So gamifying it is a great way, especially with these games and these apps. There's so much out there, and even board games as well. And I think there's been a lot of financial gurus that have come out and put out these board games that help the kids to understand, to do it in a fun way, to break it down, make it a little bit simple where they can apply it to themselves and try and learn the building blocks of the various financial concepts.
Such a good point, Yolanda.
Thank you.
About that when you said one of the oldest board games out there teaches about finances is Monopoly. Yeah, and I know when I used to play it with my kids, and they would love capturing houses. I was like, oh, so you want to get into real estate, huh? It's like, so, but I think you're absolutely right. Utilizing some of those tools can definitely help guide those kids to those different directions. So what about us moms? I mean, we talked about how we can teach our kids. Sometimes we moms find ourselves struggling with finances as well, because now you gotta, as they would say back in the day, rob Peter to pay Paul, because you're trying to find that balance of, I know I need this, but I really need this, and then how do you kind of navigate all of that? Anyone wants to jump on that one?
I would love to start, I guess. So one of the things that has helped a lot of people that I know of that are single moms or homeless moms that are trying to kind of make things work, or whatever those things are. First, we start with, okay, so where are we at currently? And if we literally have, if they have a job, so they have some kind of income, and then they figure out some kind of bills, right? Then we can kind of figure out where are they at currently? Okay, so that's where we're at. That's why we're struggling. Okay, great. Create that budget. Again, we talk about the budget again and say, okay, so here's your incoming, here's your outgoing. How do we raise your incoming, get you a new job, get you, set you up with maybe some passive income somehow? Or do we, or can we mitigate some of those, the outgoing basically, and kind of work on that, right? Once we have that budget in place, then start setting up an actual long-term plan. Okay, so if I can even save anything like 2%, that is going to make it to where if my car breaks down, I can pay that instead of having to put it on a credit card. Or, basically kind of starting there can make, anyone's life a little bit easier. And then once you have kind of a set plan, it's always easier if you know where you're going. And if you have, it's a perfect example, it was a map. If you know where you want to go, I know I want to go to Los Angeles tomorrow. Well, I have to know where I'm going and I have to know how to get there. And so I pinpoint the address and go. And I know exactly where I'm going. It's the same thing with financial literacy and financial planning, is literally just figuring out, okay, so here's my budget. Here's how I'm going to get to be able to savings. Once I'm able to do some savings, then I can start to invest. Once I've been able to start to invest a little bit of money, then we can go ahead and start going to that next level. And it can really build as long as you have some kind of plan in place.
Agree with that. Definitely planning is something really huge. And, I was just thinking about when you said, having a job, so many people are unemployed, and, and they may or may not have the opportunity to take part in the unemployment that was offered. So what advice would you give those parents or, moms, single moms? If you have nothing coming in, what do you do? I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm looking, what are some of the things that's valuable in my house that I probably have never even touched in a while? Could I possibly sell that to create, some cash flow or something like that? What are some of the suggestions that you ladies might recommend for those moms that find themselves in those types of situations?
So I will chime in, and my focus has really been around the career in financial and banking, and there's always ebbs and flows in the different two sides of the same industry. And just coming from that angle, if there's somebody out there today who's been in this situation, you wake up every morning and not have a job to go to, what do you do in that situation? There's just one recommendation I always provide just my close friends, and I have gone through several of those moments in my career. And there's one thing I always look at is, what are the skills I have? And Patrice, you mentioned that, you're really now honing in on what can I do to get an income, right? What can I sell? That's entrepreneur. You're trying to take something, get your own Etsy shop. That's a bad example, but you're trying to get your own shop to sell and have a business generated, get an income. There's other part which I always think about from a career standpoint. If one door shuts, and the pandemic created a whole slew of different opportunities. So even grocery stores were impacted, but there was a whole slew of requirements around drive-through staff, cart filling staff. So if you think about different things that have opened up because something else has happened, I think keeping your mind open and saying, how can I go tap into that part and get ahead over there, or start from scratch, even if I don't have, and just knowing that this is just my interim step to get get my income in, just to manage the day. And then eventually knowing that I will pivot from here into where I want to go, but how can I sustain and keep my head out of the water? And what are those opportunities that have been newly created that I can tap into? And if I don't know how to tap into it, do I know somebody who knows how to, and can I reach and network with them and get help? Many people are willing to help when we are in the situation, but it's up to us to ask for that help. So those are the two things I would say. Keep an eye out of what's come up, what's different as a result of this pandemic or the hardship of the industry. And number two, talk to people and make them aware that you are looking for anything, and they will help.
I actually hosted a financial success summit a couple of weeks ago, last month. And one of my keynote speakers was Daniel Lapin. And he's a South African guy. He's now based in the US. I don't know if you guys have heard about him, but one of his teachings, and he's based on ancient Jewish wisdom and how the Jewish people back in the day dealt with money and why are Jews so prosperous now, although they're such a small number. And one of his teachings was that we should all view ourselves as business owners. So whether you're a teacher, you're a doctor, or whatever profession you are, or even if you're unemployed, you got to view yourself as a business. And even if you're just a barrister in a coffee shop, you are not a barrister in a coffee shop. You are a business. All right. So your first client is your employee, your employer. So you're giving your 8 hours or 9 hours a day to this employer, and there's an exchange where you're making the coffee for your employer, and he's compensating you. So if you need more money, you got to find more clients. So after you do your 9 hours as an employee, go and do something else, work somewhere else, or get more clients somewhere else. Maybe you're doing private parties, hen parties, you're doing catering somewhere. So there's many opportunities out there, and we need to change the mindset. And I think a lot of people are looking for tips and strategies and ideas, but the mindset is not there. It's like teaching a vegan how to do a medium rare tomahawk steak on a barbecue or something. The mindset is not there between these two different people. And we have a lot of people looking for these tips and strategies, but their head is not in the right place. And the mindset is not there. And I think maybe if we step back a little and look at things from outside of the bubble and look at it differently and get the mindset right. And there's just so many opportunities, especially after this lockdown. There's just so many opportunities that come up. You just have to have your head in the right place.
I agree with that. Mindset is everything in anything that you do. You have to be intentional. You have to, seek every opportunity. And I mean, we have so many opportunities here around the world to do different things. And if we change our mindsets around, where we are, first recognizing where you are, like you said earlier, recognizing where you are, where you're starting from, like Stephanie said, and then, working on that mind, because sometimes it's so easy to feel defeated, like, oh, I can't do this, I just can't do it anymore. No, change your words. Yes, I can do this. I can do all things through he who strengthens me, right? And so, asking for the help, the guidance, and starting with that mind, changing that. I agree with that. Absolutely.
I totally agree as well. And Yolanda, you said the key words, which are think of yourself as a business owner. And I want everyone to look at their household as a business entity. And sustainability is a really important factor in how you manage a business. And, we still have this employee mindset where being an employee gives us security, but we live in a different world today, and there is less security in a paycheck. And that is exactly why you need to be able to think entrepreneurially. And, in the US, over 50% of people over 50 will suffer a significant loss in income or a job loss against their choosing. So, it is a very important fact that we need to control our destiny and be thinking about the what if. And it's not what if in the way of, oh my gosh, I'm so scared, but it's just, hey, what if, what should I prepare for? Oftentimes when things happen, we think, well, gosh, I didn't anticipate this. I didn't know this was going to happen. We don't need to know exactly when a job loss is going to happen or what exactly is going to happen, but we need to say, hey, something could happen where I could not work for a period of time. And so what do I do about that? Whether it's a medical reason or it's a job loss, it doesn't matter, but let me think about that in advance and see how I can prepare for it. If you're in it, and many, many, many of us have been during this pandemic and it wasn't anticipated, skills assessment. literally writing down all of the skills that you have and asking yourself the question, what do people come to me for? Moms often underestimate their skills. You know, I work with women on career breaks, and the first thing I hear is a fear of their de-skilling. I'm not worth anything in the marketplace today. I can guarantee you're worth something. I can guarantee you know and you do more than you think you do. So the easiest question to me is ask yourself, what do people come to me for? And then ask yourself, is that something that's marketable? Do people need that in their lives? And the answer is people need everything these days for different reasons. And so finding a channel to offer those things that you're naturally already doing and that you excel at, and recognizing those skills that you do have. And in people who aren't trying to get into the workforce, keep that skills assessment too, because again, we don't know when something can happen. It can only help you to have that in your back pocket if an event happens. And I just wanted to throw out one other little tip for people who, you know, are trying to manage their finances and do still have a job perhaps, but you know, it's tight and you're trying to make things work. Sinking funds. Budgeting is great, and adding sinking funds to that. I know that at the beginning of the school year, I'm going to need to buy new clothes for my kids. So if I start saving a little bit today, I can be so much better prepared for that back to school shopping season. Or I know that Christmas is coming. It comes every single year. So if I start socking away just a small amount right now, I'm going to be in a great position at Christmas time. And it's not going to feel as painful as looking at that credit card bill because I didn't have the cash in January. So just anticipating those needs. Again, it's the sustainability of that business mindset, but really recognizing, hey, these things keep happening. You know, the kids keep growing, they keep needing new shoes, they keep eating, and Christmas keeps coming. We have birthdays. Knowing those things that are coming and planning for those in advance when you are trying to be really mindful of your money and it is tight can really help improve that experience.
Agree with that. I just said what you said to me. I'll say it, Janice. I told my son the other day, you know, he was talking about Mother's Day. Oh, Mom, I didn't get you anything for Mother's Day. I says, now you know, Mother's Day come every year at the same time. You know, you got to be mindful. You got to think about that. And I love the idea of sinking funds. You know, it's like putting that little bit away, and it doesn't even have to be much. It could be like $5, you know, because once you add that $5 every week, it just grows and grows and grows. Now, the key to that is not touching it. You know, it's like, this is specifically for this thing and I'm not touching it. And that's where I think, how do you guys feel about CDs? I know they pay very, very low, but they're so easy to utilize to save for a specific item. So any suggestions on that?
So are you looking at a CD from the perspective of trying to like make it unavailable to you if it's hard not to touch that money?
Yes, I'm just trying to throw out some ideas of ways people can, because I know I've been there in that situation where I was saving for something specific and then something else happened and I had to tap into that to take it out. So, but if it was a lot less, not as convenient for me to take it away, then I know I would have that money for that particular thing. And then I would look at some other ways to, get money for the other things that I might have needed.
So personally, CDs are not necessarily the right thing for everyone and most of the time. The first thing I would say is before you're going to invest in sinking funds, what you need to invest in is your emergency fund. Emergency fund is first because that is the fund that if something happens, you go to and you make sure it's replenished. And that can be for anything from the car breaks down to a medical expense to a job loss. You need the emergency fund because that's your risk bucket. That's that I didn't know this was going to happen, but I've got this available to me. So when you have that emergency fund, you don't have to touch the Christmas fund or you don't have to touch the Mother's Day fund. So that's the first hurdle. The second is I think it's more valuable to address the mindset barriers that you have that are making you go after that money. So there's something that's disconnected. So instead of making it unavailable to you, and I'm working with a client right now and she's like, I've got this amount of money. I gave it to my mom. I gave it to my mom because I know I'm going to touch it and my mom won't give it to me. And that's great. And that's great that she recognizes that about herself. But now stepping back and saying, okay, why don't you trust yourself? Why do you not feel empowered to tell yourself no? In the long run, addressing that will serve her better because she'll be able to improve her relationship with money and make better decisions in the long run because she's absolutely capable of doing it. So really understanding why you're tapping into that money, making sure that it's not for emergencies because you have your emergency fund, and then addressing the mindset barriers that kind of put that money at risk, I think are better than locking it up in a CD because CDs, you have to get the time frame right, as well as the fact that they don't really earn. So they're kind of like the financial reasons why I don't love CDs. But at the end of the day, it's more that I really like to address the mindset.
I love that. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because I also am not a huge fan of CDs myself either. But one of the things that I've noticed that have helped me with like, for example, Christmas is a great example because I don't know about you guys, but we love to go all out and make sure that, the kids and the nieces and nephews and everybody are just very excited about Christmas, right? And so what I actually do, instead of just putting it into a separate fund, is I literally start buying Christmas gifts in July. And so I know that sounds crazy, but I'm telling you guys, it's amazing because I start in July and I buy something every 2 weeks or so, right? Buy a bunch, and then by December, I'm done. I'm sorry, by November, I am usually done with all of my Christmas shopping and have everything wrapped by December 1st. And everybody thinks, well, you're crazy. That's insane. It's so efficient because I don't have a lot of extra time. So it's kind of the perfect ability to just do things every few weeks or so instead of having to lump it into one big thing, kind of like the credit card thing, right? Where if you have one huge amount come out in 1 month, it's like, oh, that was a lot. Whereas if you just kind of do it every once in a while and you just kind of get it done, you have less to do in the long run. And on top of that, you actually look like you're really efficient too. It's like a double win. But it's very helpful for me. On top of that, yes, the emergency fund is absolutely vital. So I'm so glad you mentioned that because emergency fund is so different than that extra fund, right? And then I also know a lot of people who love to travel. So that extra fund is usually not the emergency fund. It's usually traveling. Or obviously gifts and stuff for Christmas is a great one, but travel is almost a completely different expense that eventually, when you're able to start really having enough money to be able to travel, that's another really great way to have some additional money to do things that you want to do. Like you talked about how much you love to travel, Janice. And so I think that that is also something to take into consideration too, because not everyone can afford, a $5,000 or $10,000 trip somewhere right off the bat. Or if they do and they put it on a credit card, eventually they have to pay it back. So it's just, I love that concept. It's a fun one.
No, I definitely agree with the emergency fund. I think that's very important to have one. And I only mention the CDs because I know some people have asked me questions about that. It's not my favorite tool either, and I always suggest other things, but I know there's some people that are adamant, that need that help. And again, Janice, you're right. It's about that mindset of, you need to really realize why can I, not be disciplined enough to not touch that if it's for a specific item. But, again, mindset around money has been a challenge. And I think it's a big challenge for women because we feel like we're always got to be we're on that wheel. We just got to make things happen, and learning to say no to some things sometimes can be difficult for us. So,
Patrice, you said the word discipline, and I sit with clients every day and we talk about money. And, what I've observed is money problems that people have, they're not actually money problems. They're discipline problems. And if we're earning $5,000 a month, why are we spending $5,500 or $6,000? And it all goes back to mindset again. We have to relook at it. And if we can get the mindset, the foundation right, the less we have to undo and, to start building wealth.
Absolutely. So, this whole conversation about learning our mindsets around money, how do we teach our kids, it's so important as moms, because I don't remember who said it, but moms are the ones that usually kind of run the household, and we're the biggest spenders. And so it's so important that we have our minds together so that we can be able to teach our children, the way that they should go. And, I love it when we can kind of come together in these types of platforms and have these conversations around, what's out there, what's available for folks to get involved in and to learn. Each day things change, situations change, and you need to have a plan and a preparation for that, prepare for those changes and such. So I love it how Stephanie talks about the Christmas thing. It's not crazy to have Christmas in July. They even have a program that's called Christmas in July. And I love it because it's an opportunity for folks to think about, we kind of are always in the now, moving in the now. And, now could be tomorrow. So we have to think about that, if that makes sense. Of like, now could be tomorrow, So having that financial plan in place and really turning our minds around, okay, we need to renew, we need to think about things differently, and what's around us, what are our abilities that we can utilize to grow our financial base. Anyone else have any questions? Or maybe I'm kind of checking to see if there's any Q&As out there. If anyone has any questions about what we've talked about or have any input. Anything else anyone else want to share that they've experienced?
I just wanted to say that, a lot of moms try and shield their kids from money. And we talked about different resources, but that mindset issue that many moms have, that, we don't want money to be the deciding factor in how we parent our kids. We don't want it to limit our ability to do a great job with our family. And so because of that, sometimes mothers in particular are hesitant and they don't want to get involved in their finances. But every single time you don't make a decision about your financial future, you are making a decision. And the first place your kids are going to learn about financial literacy is from you. And so making the decision to be actively involved, and I'm not saying making the decision to be perfect, making the decision to be involved and learning as you go is going to be the best lesson you can give your kids in financial literacy.
As a mom, one of the most difficult things that you have to do is to let your children fail and fall. Because it's only when those things happen. I mean, it's nice when we're around and we're that safety net, but it's part of the learning process for them. And with everything, whether it be school or sports and even with money, sometimes we just have to say no. And sometimes when we're encouraging them to save and they're not being very obedient, they have to have those opportunities to learn why saving is important, why they need to have that emergency account. And it's heartbreaking at times as a mother, because, they really want the thing and you've been encouraging them to save. And the only way they're going to learn that lesson is if they not have it. So for me, that's my struggle is being able to tell them, to tell them no at times, but I know it's going to benefit them in the end as well.
I wanted to add just in closing that the way I teach my kids in terms of financial independence is the value of choices, and they get to choose. There are things within that are completely out of reach and out of scope. And for those, I make them understand where the boundaries are. But for those that are within the boundaries, I give them a choice. You either want a Disney vacation or you want this. And if they've told me that they want a Disney vacation and they've told me that they want this other shiny object, I ask them to choose, and I'm okay with whatever they choose. But one has to go if one has to be be there as a part of your choice. And so I teach them that the value of choice, having, and I think that's just a selfish purpose of me because I don't want to say no to them thus far in their age, but I also want to recognize and give them the ability that you have everything at your disposal to choose, and you have to make the right choices. And what you choose, you just have to stick to it. And then eventually, like Yolanda, you said it, you learn, you fall, you test, you experiment, you learn and understand whether my choice was the right choice or the wrong choice and what I need to learn from that. So that's kind of how I tell them, okay, you said you wanted this, and last month you said this. So we are saving up to go and give you that vacation. But if you don't want that, you want to choose this, it's up to you. And I kind of make them think, and I let them I put pressure for them to make the choice and think versus me making the decision based on my own logical understanding. So I just wanted to give that, offer that up to moms and who have kids, I don't know, of whatever ages. It's pretty powerful in what I'm learning as a parent, in how they're understanding and they're logically approaching the situation. And it kind of removes us as parents and moms especially to be that person who says no in situations, and then the whole crying and tantrum and all of the other things that follows after that.
I would also like to add a couple more things. Thank you guys, ladies. You guys are amazing, by the way. I'm just loving this. This is amazing. Well, one of the things that I have almost a constant reminder is every person on this earth has 24 hours a day. We all have the same amount of time, right? Each person makes choices on how they do things on a daily basis. The 1%ers have the same 24 hours as we do. The difference is we spend that time differently. And one of the biggest things that I have learned recently is a lot of people who are afraid to be leaders, who are afraid to be entrepreneurs, who are afraid to step out of their little comfort zone, right? You're already a leader, like we talked about. So your house is as an entrepreneur. Well, technically speaking, if you're a parent in any shape or form, you actually already are a leader because you're leading your kids in a direction, whether you want to see it or not. You're leading them somewhere, right? So you might as well lead them in the right direction, and success follows success. So if you're learning and you're educating yourself on how to do these things, and you're teaching your children to do these things, they will learn not only at a younger age how to do these things and hopefully implement them. They'll hopefully teach their kids that then teach their kids that then go and so forth, right? So you as the leader of your home, your entrepreneur of your home, the leader of your children, can become a 1%er, one of those people who has that same 24 hours as you do. The difference is now you're educating yourself on how you can become that 1%er, how you can make more money, how you can double your income in a month. And it's just all a simple portion of education for yourself and then educating your children.
Very well said. I love that because we are the leaders of our families, and we have the ability to do the work. And again, getting our minds right, and then the kids see. I always tell my kids, be better than me. And I say that because I want them to go one step further than I've gone, and finding out what's right for them. I don't always get it right. I'm still learning too. My mom said that to me, and she's 93 years old. She said, I don't know everything, but I know a lot, but I don't know everything. I'm learning every day. She was telling me, we were doing something, and she said, well, go on the Facebook. I said, Mom, how do you know about Facebook? So she's like, you find out everything on Facebook. I was like, okay. So even she is learning, and we're always learning. And so if we're opening ourselves up to being educated on things that could make our lives better and our children's lives better, especially around finance, I think we'll all be just amazing. And we're already amazing, but we'll be even better. So I thank you, ladies. I think we got about 10 more minutes. If you guys want to have any other things you want to add to the conversation, or if there's anyone that has questions, that would be great.
Actually, I just want to just chip in on what you said, Patrice, about wanting your kids to do better. And I speak to my tribe as such, my social media following, about building generational wealth. And it's not just about money. It's about opportunity. It's about education. And I guess you must be willing to plant seeds of trees that will eventually produce shade that you know that you will never sit under the shade of these trees. And I think if you're willing to make that kind of sacrifice for your bloodline, for the future generations of your family, you're going to be okay. And sometimes it seems like you're in such a state where you can't leave a big financial legacy to your kids or your grandkids. But it's just that one opportunity. If all you can give your kids is financial literacy, you've given them such a great opportunity. And as moms, we need to be willing to do this. And it's a hard lesson because we got to learn, about our finances first. We got to be financially literate first before we teach it to our kids. And we need to be willing and able to make that sacrifice for them.
It's definitely all about sacrifice. And I love what you said, building that generational wealth, because it's not just about you. It's about the generation to come. And as we pass down our knowledge base down, we're hoping that our kids do the same. And I believe that they will. And it goes back to training a child in the way that they should go, and they will never depart from it. So when you think about that concept, it's like, okay, I'll give them the best knowledge I can and encourage them to learn more. That's always a plus for a family and for moms. I don't have anything else. I don't see any questions out in the audience. So if you guys have anything else you want to share, this is the moment to do it. Otherwise, I think this might conclude our session.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, lady. It was so nice to meet you and be on the panel with you today. I think we hit a lot of great points. I've learned something here today. So, and especially, about creating, those generational things and changing the mindset, because it's so key. So thank you, ladies, for sharing your wisdom here today. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you on the next summit.
So much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You guys as well. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.